Hey guys, welcome back to Project Cummins. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about EGTs. What is an EGT? How do I measure EGT? What's an acceptable range for EGT? Do I use a gauge? Where does it go? These are all great questions and I get them quite often. So let's start off with what is EGT? EGT stands for exhaust gas temperature. Where do I measure this at? You can buy a pyrometer. That's right, I said pyrometer. It's a gauge that you can get for your truck, and I already have one in here, so we're not going to be doing an installation on that today. But it comes with a probe about yay long that you drill a hole in a common point on your exhaust manifold where all the tubes come out of the cylinders to a common point before the turbo. Now you want to put it in there before your turbo so you can accurately measure your exhaust gas temperature before it hits the turbine wheel of the turbo. You don't want to do this post-turbo, meaning after, because that won't be an accurate reading and you could go higher in your exhaust gas temperatures thinking you're safe when you're actually not. So now we know what an EGT is and how it's measured and where to measure it. So what's the acceptable EGT ranges? Well, for our motor's piston, the Cummins piston, is made from an aluminum alloy. And that aluminum alloy under extremely high temperatures for an extended period of time will melt. Also, your turbo can only withstand so much heat. It'll melt as well. So what's an acceptable range? I'm going to tell you that 1200 degrees and lower is acceptable. 1200 degrees up to 1400 degrees is acceptable for less than 2 minutes. So if you're towing up a big hill, and as long as you're not going to be towing up this big hill with a heavy load and between 1200 and 1400 for any more than 2 minutes, after that you're looking at some serious damage. If your EGTs are 1400 and higher, that's okay if it's only there for a few seconds. I'm talking like 5 seconds or less. After that, you want to drop EGTs right now. There's very few people that have hit the 14, 15, 16, 17, and all the way up to 2000 degree range and lets the telltale afterwards. Once you hit that degree range and you keep pushing it, if you're lucky, you'll just melt your turbo. If you're lucky. If not, you're looking at a rebuild. And if you're extremely unlucky, you're looking at a new engine. So we need to be keeping an eye on exhaust gas temperatures. And like I said before, you want to stay below 1200 degrees. Okay, so what happens? Why do we get in such high temperatures? It's usually a case of not enough air for your fuel, or not enough cold air for your fuel. And in our case today, we're going to try and help lower the EGTs on our truck because we have programmed this to a very high setting, and we still have a stock turbo, we have a stock intercooler, and we have a modified stock exhaust, straight piped. So what's going to be one of the ways that we can help cool down our EGTs? Well, the way that we chose was to take the old intercooler, which is extremely restrictive, and get rid of it. Now, if you go on the forums online and you start looking around about intercoolers and you start asking, hey, maybe I should do this. There's a lot of people that are going to give you misinformation and say, nah, leave it in there. Just go get yourself a water methanol injection kit and that's it. Yeah, okay, that might help your problem, but it won't solve your problem. And changing out your stock intercooler is really going to help work you towards solving your problem. The stock intercooler is very inefficient, it's very restrictive, it's just not made for more power. It's made to run the truck stock and that's it. But even a stock truck with a stock intercooler can blow that intercooler. These stock intercoolers aren't made to withstand a lot of abuse. The engine is, intercooler isn't. And you'll get a lot of people saying that, oh, well, changing out the stock intercooler, you're not going to see any benefit from that unless you're doing at least 600 horse. If you're pulling, let's say, 20,000 pounds up a 7-8% grade, and you're trying to keep up with traffic, your turbo's stock, you got a little bit more fuel being put into the cylinder more than stock, yeah, you're going to notice that you need more air. So for those people that are saying that you're not going to see any benefit at all unless you're running 600 horse, wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You're definitely going to see a benefit in cooler EGTs. Okay, so what if you're just playing and you boost up your turbo, or you swap it out for a slightly bigger turbo? You're running down the track or you're pulling the sled along, all of a sudden, POW! Chances are that was your gasket that's holding the two pieces of your intercooler together, blew apart. And that's one of the things that I don't like about the stock intercooler, is that it's cheap. On the sides, they're made of plastic, and they're crimped together on the metal core with a rubber O-ring. That rubber O-ring can blow. And it doesn't even have to be a bigger turbo. It could just be over time of wear and tear, and it's finally time for it to blow out. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how to install an intercooler on our 2003 Cummins. So the first thing you do... Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you take off your terminals off your battery. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is take off this 10mm nut, and then take off the tube from your air filter housing off your turbo, and then remove this whole housing as one piece. After you got your air filter housing out, you want to go ahead and take off this clamp off the boost tube, and this clamp back here, ours was rather stubborn, so we just went ahead and cut it off. Once you got it off, just go ahead and take it out. You have the boost tube on the passenger side out. You want to go behind the radiator, right here, and over here, and take out the two bolts that hold the radiator to this cross member here. Two bolts holding the radiator into this cross member. It's sitting a little wobbly, a little free. You now want to take out the two bolts on the stock intercooler sitting here and here. Now that you have the two bolts holding the intercooler to this cross member, what you want to do is you want to remove 4 bolts that are on the cross member, on two on each side. 2 here and 2 over here. Now that you've taken all 4 bolts off of the cross member, you can lift it up and just put it right out of the way. Okay, so now that the cross member is off and out of the way, there are 4 brackets holding your air conditioner condenser to your stock intercooler. I've already had one taken 3 of those brackets off, and I left this one on the right on. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to take this bungee cord, and I'm going to help hold up the stock condenser out of the way, because I don't have anyone to hold it for me while we get the rest of this out. So, with the 3 brackets off, I'm going to go ahead and take out this last bolt. And then carefully pick up your air conditioner condenser and just twist it right out of the way. You want to be very careful, because the lines on this side over here are not meant to do a whole lot of bending, and you don't want to break them. Okay, so now that it's up and out of the way, we can come down here and remove this last piece of boost tube from the stock intercooler and get this out of here. Okay, so we got the stock intercooler out. As you can see, something's missing. So now it's time to loosen up the boost tube on the high ram intake and get that stock boost tube out of there. I've already gone ahead and loosened it up, so let's see if we can't get it out of here, shall we? Okay, so now that we got all these pieces out, we're going to go ahead and compare some of them so you can kind of see as to what I'm talking about, where it's really going to open up your air passage. This is the old boost tube off the driver's side, alright? Kind of restrictive, it's kind of small. Here's the new one. You can see there's a hell of a difference in opening. This, I believe, is about 2 1/4 to 2 1/2, and this is 3 1/2 inches. A lot more open, less restrictive. It's going to flow a lot better. It's kind of like the exhaust, how we straight pipe the exhaust to get a better flow. Same thing here. Check out the intercoolers themselves. The right one's the stock, and the left one is the new one from Banks. That's a lot bigger. That's going to take a lot more cold air coming down the road. And if you look up close, these are the tubes which your air comes through to cool down. The one on the new one, a lot bigger. It's going to be a lot better to cool air. Now that we've got everything torn apart, the last thing we got to do, the last thing we got to take off is our old intake. This was more or less just a replacement for the stock horn, and I don't remember if it was given to me or if I paid for it. Really wasn't much, but it was second hand. So we're going to replace this with this. Now, they're both from Banks, and this is more or less meant to be just a replacement for the stock and nothing else. And the big difference between them is on the old one, the hole was only meant to go for the stock intercooler, whereas the new one has a lot bigger intake. So we're going to go from the 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 up to the 3 1/2. Also, as an added bonus on this new intake horn, it also has these holes on the side. So as we do further updates, we can now add water methanol injection. We can add propane. We could add nitrous kits. There's a lot of possibilities. And in total, they have 6 holes. And for right now, I've plugged up the holes. And later on, as we do other projects, we may be taking those out and put them in. Maybe. But I did keep one of them, and that's for the old boost line. So now that I got the old one off, I'm going to go ahead and take out the old studs and replace them with new ones, because these studs were meant for that intake, and the new ones are going to be a little bit shorter in the front for this intake. To take out these old studs, it's actually pretty simple. We got these 2 nuts here, and we're going to thread one of the nuts on, and then we're going to thread the other nut right on top of it. Alright, once we got the 2 on, we're going to go ahead and secure the bottom one. Well, probably not like that. And then the top one, we're going to tighten on top of it. That way, we can just take the whole stud out. just like that. And then the reinstallation of the new studs will be quite similar. Not to mention I'm going to also replace this gasket. Okay, now that I got the old threaded studs out, I'm going to get the new threaded studs and put a little bit of Loctite on them. Now you can see there's two different sides to these threads. You can see there's a shorter threaded side and then a longer threaded side. It's the shorter threaded side that goes into the engine. So apply your Loctite, hand tighten them in, and then you want to tighten them down to 60 studs, down to 60 inch-pounds. And your new gasket on, you're going to go ahead and put your new intake horn over. And you want to put that O-seal washer on the two longer threaded studs towards the driver's side. And then flat washers on top of it, and flat washers on all of them. The rubber seal washers like this only go on the longer ones, not the shorter ones. Once you have this on, go ahead and put your nuts on and tighten them down to 144 inch-pounds. Okay, now that our new intake elbow is on, it's time to start feeding our new boost tube in and around the tight areas. Take your time because the clearances are going to be a lot more difficult than the stock because this is a lot bigger. And once you get it into the boot there, you want to get your spring-loaded clamp and you want to tighten these down to 60 inch the boost tube in, and I just went ahead and lightly tightened down the spring-loaded clamp, and I'm going to tighten it further down more once I get the intercooler in there. Go ahead and put your boots on the intercooler and you can tighten those down and get those ready so you can start to wiggle this thing in. Okay, so the intercooler is in place and the boost tube on the driver's side is connected from the intercooler to our intake horn up here. Now what you want to do is get your AC condenser and carefully flip it back in front of your intercooler. And you want to get out these brackets that came with your kit and mount the AC condenser to the new intercooler. You're going to need the new brackets and not the old brackets because the old brackets are not going to be the correct length to hold it in place where the new holes are at. So using the original hardware that came off the old brackets, you're going to get this mounted on. Okay, so now that we got the AC condenser back on, time to get this cross brace. Then we're going to put the bolts in the cross brace loosely. That way we can help better align the new intercooler and the radiator into the cross member. So put those bolts in loosely, then secure your intercooler radiator. Okay, so cross member's in, intercooler's in, air conditioner's in. Air conditioner condenser's in. Bolts are in to hold in the radiator and the intercooler. Boost tube's in. Now let's work on the passenger side and get its boost tube in and its spring-loaded clamps. Make sure these are tightened down to 60 inch-pounds or 5 foot-pounds. So if you got a torque wrench that goes that low, but I don't, so 60 inch-pounds. Okay, so we just finished up tightening down our clamps, and now that the passenger boost tube is in, the only thing left now is get the air filter housing. So everything has been installed or reinstalled after the aftermarket system. So let's go ahead and take a look and see just how nice it looks inside. Okay, starting from the turbo, if I can get a good view. Alright, we got the new boost tube in, all the new clamps. Oh yeah, looking good. There she is. Nice big boost tube. It's kind of a pain to get in, and that's mostly because of clearance issues. Not a real good view there. Nice new intercooler. I like the fact that it looks basically stock. It really doesn't look aftermarket until you start to look real close. See how everything's kind of like touching in here? See that? Very, very close. Coming up. Brand new intake horn. It's looking awesome. And yeah. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's basically the entire install of the new intercooler. So now it's time to go see just how much this helps us out in our EGTs.